yeah, I'm just going to move on to a really shocking resignation letter that we saw in the week, which is from Nadine Zahawi. You can see there the headed paper, and this is the paragraph that got everyone's attention, where he congratulates Boris Johnson on keeping a dangerous anti-Semite out of number 10. Now, I was taken aback by that because I thought that MPs wouldn't talk about other MPs in that way in public, but it seems like he thinks he can just say that sort of thing. Chris Williamson's on the call. Chris, sorry to keep you waiting a bit. What do you think? What do you think that was deliberately inflammatory that he wrote that, or was he just not? Do they not actually care what they say or how it would affect other people?
Well, we've had 5 or 6 years of these sorts of smears against Jeremy Corbyn and the left of the Labour Party, and frankly, I think the Labour left actually facilitated it by not standing up for itself, not fighting back, and not challenging the narrative. And so it's kind of got into the psyche, it seems now, and it's just a stick that they use whenever the opportunity arises. And I guess Zahawi was, seeking to curry favour with certain quarters by, he's a convenient sort of scapegoat, isn't he, Jeremy, just to have a go, as it were. But as Tony Benn once said, the reason they call us names is that they dare not face our arguments, and I think that is the key issue really here.
But as an MP, you have parliamentary privilege, don't you? You can say whatever you like in Parliament. But that letter, you can't write a letter of resignation. That's not within parliamentary privilege, is it?
No, that's not covered by parliamentary privilege. My understanding of parliamentary privilege is that you're not restricted in what you say in the House of Commons or indeed the House of Lords chamber. Although the judiciary were getting rather upset a few years ago about what they considered to be the abuse of parliamentary privilege in naming people. For example, when Peter Hain named Peter Green as being involved in bullying and sexual harassment, and I think there was a non-disclosure agreement that had been signed by the victims. And anyway, Hain used parliamentary.
But have you heard of MPs taking other MPs to court for a libel of that sort?
Well, I mean, obviously we saw the deputy chair of the Conservative Party being threatened with legal action by Jeremy a couple of years or so ago, wasn't it? And had to pay substantial damages and issued a grovelling public apology. And I think Jeremy ought to consider taking legal action. But, unfortunately, because there wasn't a pushback right from the outset, that it's sort of become accepted now that the Labour Party was riven with anti-Semites and that Jeremy Corbyn was himself an anti-Semite, or if not an anti-Semite himself, certainly the facilitator of anti-Semites. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. The whole thing was a nonsense and actually driven by the Zionist lobby and, of course, right-wing elements, both in the establishment, obviously, but in the Parliamentary Labour Party, who are effectively the mouthpiece for the corporate capitalist establishment in this country.
Well, I'm going to bring on Brian Basham, who's come on the show before. He was a journalist and has been involved in several libel cases. Is that right, Brian?
Yeah.
Now, what did you actually contacted me and said that you thought that Jeremy Corbyn should sue on this, or take Zahawi to court, or threaten to? Could you tell us what you think on this?
Yeah, just to let you know, I mean, I've been involved in I'm counting 24 defamation actions, 23 of which I've been a defendant, one of which I was a plaintiff, which was a dirty tricks affair, and I won them all.
You won them all?
They've been actions from providers, Vehicle in General, Lonro, Guinness, in takeover bids, fight takeover bids. I'm also a founder of the Centre for Investigative Journalism, and as an investigator, you get lots of writs of one kind or another. Just ask Ian his lot, you know. So this statement is clearly defamatory. There's no doubt in my mind about that at all. To my mind, Jeremy Corbyn must take action. As you stand on the stocks, it's a sort of a confirmation. And it's also a service to, if you like, the truth. I mean, he's not an anti-Semite. The International Holocaust definition is very broadly drafted, and even within that, he's not an anti-Semite. So, but the bits that have been taken out by the Labour right, there are a few quotes, I think I sent them to you, Crispin, you know, make it look as though it's an anti-Semite. It's not. And we need a definition of anti-Semitism in court of law, because obviously the IHA definition is drafted by people who are peculiarly sensitized to anti-Semitism, quite rightly so. But it's very unsatisfactory. It's very rambling and broad. So we need a clear definition, and Jeremy should launch a line of action. He should go for a crowdfunder, and I'd put some money in. I'm sure other people would. He'd need about £1 million. It cost me. I was on the line. I was called a liar by a book called Dirty Tricks. I didn't want my children to think I was a liar, so I fought, and I put everything on the line, my house and everything. I was 1.4 million on the line on costs. I was 3 weeks in court, and I think 4 days in the witness box. And
well, I think there's a lot of people putting comments about how they're not sure it would work because of other cases they've seen. So, I mean, I can see what you're saying, but I think maybe we should carry on this discussion later, because there's probably a lot more to do with this. What do you think, Chris? It's not as straightforward. I mean, you've been to court on this kind of issue. Is it something?
It is straightforward.
Would you warn Jeremy against it?
I mean, obviously, there's a big risk in taking legal action. You never know which way the court is going to jump. You can never be certain with these things, and it is incredibly expensive. I mean, in my own case, which wasn't as high profile as one taken by Jeremy in this case. I mean, the total costs were in the order of £250,000. My costs were approaching £100,000, and the party's costs must have been around £100,000 to £150,000. But you know, for me, I mean, I'm just figuring out the dictionary definition, Crispin, of anti-Semitism, and it's fairly straightforward: hostility to or prejudice against Jews. We don't need the IHRA or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be good if we could maybe get that confirmed in a court of law. But these people feel that they have license to say and do what they like. And as I've already said, Crispin, earlier on, that was enabled by the unwillingness to challenge this narrative. And so, you know, the genie's out of the bottle. That's the problem, because there was no pushback. Well, apart from the odd case, I mean, people like myself, but then we were sort of sacrificed for pushing back. So I think that's made it even more difficult now to actually, take action. But certainly, if Jeremy was up for it, I think there would be a lot of support. I think people were willing Jeremy to come out swinging against these appalling calumnies to which he was being subjected. But of course, he never did. He kept apologising and giving ground to bad faith actors. So, you know, if we can get it resolved in the court of law, but there's a risk, of course, Crispin. Let's not underestimate that risk. It might go against us, which would make matters even worse. I don't know what our legal friend has got to say about that, but I mean, if it went against us, that could be even more problematic, couldn't it?
And the fact is that defamation is always a bit of a lottery. It depends whether you go before a jury or not. I went before a jury and won. on my latest one, the biggest one. But there's no doubt, I'll start from the beginning. It is defamatory to say that Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic. There's no doubt about that at all. Any QC, any first weak lawyer will tell you that. Question is, can you win? Well, as Chris has just said, the dictionary definition is prejudice against Jews. I have no doubt that Jeremy Corbyn is not prejudiced against Jews. He's been sacrificed by a twisted approach from the Labour right to brand him anti-Semitic, to get him off the political stage. And to my mind, anti-Semitism is a slur on the whole of the Labour Party now. My friends, I worked for the Israelis. I got a vote of thanks personally from Chaim Herzl for advising the Israelis in the 80s. And we now are branded anti-Semites. I find it personally offensive. And Jeremy's got a chance of clearing his name and the name of the Labour Party. If he were to fail, he would be in no worse a position than he is today, because he is branded an anti-Semite. But it could be expensive. They would employ the top people and throw everything against him. And I say he'd need £1 million reserve fund.